Hey Beans, so we're doing another rant video. Today, it's not a negative one though, I promise. And we're gonna get a little philosophical, so stick with me, but that's more towards the end. We're gonna talk more about life lessons and kind of the things you can learn from the idea that, yes, rares are just pixels. The title is, Rares Aren't Just Pixels. So I'm gonna start off with counter-arguments, why rares could be considered just pixels. So yeah, it's true. In the end, in 10 years, you're not going to care that you lost your rares. Unless, for some reason, you play this game in 10 years, I don't know. But if you look back on a game you played when you were like 5, if you went back to Club Penguin, and if there was trading, like traded away your black bow tie nowadays, you probably wouldn't care, because you don't care about Club Penguin. But at the time when you were really into Club Penguin, and you knew that your item was rare, you'd be so upset to have lost that. But because in the future, they don't serve a productive purpose, and you won't care, you can assign what I like to call a present value, where, you know, they matter to you now, they're important, they give you happiness, but you can't assign anything further than that, because you know that in the future they will not serve a purpose, they don't have a useful use, and you just won't really care. One argument that people make about rares are just pixels is that, you know, money is just paper and bullets are just metal. But the difference is, money and bullets are universally accepted. Around the world, they have the same use. Almost everyone uses money, except like weird tribes and like philosophers who don't care about anything but knowledge. I don't know. However, around the world, almost everyone cares about money, and that's why it can be considered as mattering. Everyone agrees that it is important, and it serves a useful purpose of keeping you alive, sustaining you, letting you live comfortably in your society, and achieving basic human rights. In kind of an opposite way, but still a very similar way, a bullet is universally accepted. Whether you think of it as, oh, it's just metal, if you get shot, you're still gonna suffer the same consequences as someone who's like, oh my god, a bullet. So those things, you cannot deny their value, because everyone around you accepts their value and they've become constants that everyone believes. With rares, it's different. It's just the meaning you attach to them. If you go up to some random guy, you want my long black spike collar, they're not gonna care. They don't play Animal Jam, they don't want it. They don't serve a real life purpose, but that's not to say they aren't important. The true way to phrase my argument would be, rares are just pixels, but they matter. Rares aren't just pixels, because rares do have a real life purpose in the end. When you get hacked, you have every right to be upset. When you get scammed, you have every right to be upset, because you worked hard for those items, you put time into them, and they matter to you in the present moment. Other people's opinions may be different about the value of those, but in the end, it is your opinions that are going to matter. The thing that is important, though, is that you understand that from a purely logical standpoint, everyone is going to agree that those rares really weren't that big of a deal. But in the moment, it's okay. You're upset, you have to live through it, you have to get through the pain, you have to go through your stages of suffering in order to come to terms with it. And that's part of the process of realizing that rares are just pixels. And again, like I said, rares won't have a long-term effect on you, but that's not to say they don't matter. The important thing is that rares act as a life lesson. Rares serve as almost practice tools for the real world. And yeah, that's the whole point of a practice tool, is it doesn't matter. It's like a simulation, and it's preparing you for what's going on. The distilled essence of practice implies that the principles you learn from the mock situation will define the outcome of the realistic, real-world problem. For example, this is one example of practice that's going to affect you in the future. The rares may not matter, but there's something else in the situation that does. You share your password with your best friend on Animal Jam, and within the hour, they log onto your account and they take everything on your account. It's all gone. You're done. You come up to them afterwards, because you know it's them, because you just shared your password with them, they're the only person who knows it, and you say, dude, why'd you do that? And he says, oh, it's okay, it's just pixels. And so, obviously you'd think, from a logical standpoint, that, yeah, they are just pixels, why should you care? The important factor you're overlooking is that your friend's trust has been broken, and that is what's going to matter in the future. And that is why scamming and hacking is such a big problem. It's not that someone taking your spiked collar is a felony, it's that these people are practicing in a game to be immoral in real life. The pixels you lost, let's say they hacked your founder's hat. Your founder's hat isn't gonna matter. But what's gonna matter is that you lost your trust with such a good friend, you may have trouble trusting people in the future, and you may learn a life lesson in a really hard way. And I hate to say it, but that is, to some extent, the benefit of scamming and hacking, is you learn these lessons while you're still in the practice mode. It's better to lose your founder's hat now than in 10 years lose all your money to some crazy televangelist scam. If this person hacks you and takes all of your stuff, then that is a legitimate reason to end the friendship. If in this practice situation, your friend is willing to take advantage of you, then in the real world, or when it really starts to matter, these people are still going to do the same thing to you. I like to think of it as a fraction. Alright, here's where it gets a little philosophical. Just bear with me. If the person is willing to take your items when their value, and I'm saying value not as the value that you assign to them, but the value that as a society we would agree their usefulness implies. So, rares, obviously, entertainment purposes, no actual function, not going to matter in a little bit. 1. They count as a 1 on the mattering scale, because they don't truly serve a productive purpose. The crime the person committed can be thought of as a 1 as well, not because it's not a huge moral slip up, but because the punishment they receive for it is like a 1. It's just a 1 or 2 day suspension on a kid's game. And so, unfortunately, when people are committing these immoral acts, they're not thinking like, ooh, I'm only gonna go to this level of immorality. Once you do these things, you've done them, and all you're thinking about are the consequences. This is where the idea of the fraction comes in. If someone is going to take your rares, which are considered a 1, when the punishment is nothing more than a 1 on the punishment scale, then later in life, when it's all of your money, and it's like 100,000 on your scale, and everyone would agree that that's a very important part of your existence, well, the punishment is going to be 100,000. But if the person was willing to do it when the benefit was 1 and the risk was 1, the person will do it when the benefit is 100,000 and the risk is 100,000. When someone scams you on Animal Jam, I'm not saying it's equivalent, but I'm saying that if they were to follow that same scale of immorality for the rest of their life, they would eventually reach a point where the severity of their crime is much greater than some rare on Animal Jam. And so that's where my confusing idea of a fraction for morality comes in. I don't know why. I thought of this a long time ago, and I've always wanted to share it with somebody, but I never really thought of a good place to share it. But I think the idea of rares in Animal Jam is a great place to get started on it. So basically, that's why I think that rares, even though they're just pixels, are not something that's worth getting upset over in the long term, but are something that can set a standard for the rest of your life and are a practice mode that you should be taking seriously. And again, if you think rares are just pixels and they don't matter, you're going to miss out on the entire point of a practice mode. If the entire time you're playing the simulation you think, oh, it's just a simulation, I don't have to try because when I get into the real world it'll be different. No, you miss the entire point of the simulation. If you go to practice and you don't try, and then you decide to try in the games, you're not going to do as well as if you tried in the practices. So basically what I'm trying to say is, don't fret over your loss in Animal Jam, but take it seriously. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.